My heart froze as she demanded I be her husband for a year. Her gaze, fierce yet fragile, pulled me into chaos. My daughter watched, innocent. I whispered, trembling, "Fine," and stepped into a year of fire. If you like this story, then press like button. The office was silent, the kind of quiet that made every keystroke echo through the empty cubicles like a heartbeat. I had stayed late again, buried in spreadsheets and reports, my daughter's laughter from our video call still ringing in my ears. The night had a certain heaviness to it, the kind that makes you feel the weight of your own life pressing down, and I thought I was prepared for anything. Until she appeared. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, each step sharp, deliberate, yet somehow graceful. The sound sliced through the quiet, announcing her presence, and I looked up, startled. There she was, my boss, usually poised, confident, untouchable. And yet, tonight, she looked vulnerable. Her brow was furrowed, her lips slightly parted, and there was a tremor in her hands I had never seen before. The image was disarming. Beautiful, powerful, and now human. "I need a favor," she said, her voice steady but softer than I expected. It carried a weight I couldn't place, a subtle plea hidden beneath her usual authority. Her eyes, sharp and calculating by day, were almost pleading tonight, wide and raw. "I need you to pretend to be my husband." I choked on my coffee. My brain tried to process her words, scrambled for a response, but it landed on nothing. My mouth opened, closed, and finally, I managed a hoarse, "Excuse me." "For 1 year," she continued, unwavering. "Just 1 year. No one else can do it, and I don't have time to explain everything. You'll understand later, please." My heart thudded violently, not from excitement but from a strange cocktail of fear and disbelief. My eyes darted to the clock, the empty office, and then back at her. A year. Pretend to be her husband. With my daughter watching. And her. My mind screamed at me that this was insane, a scenario plucked from a drama I didn't even want to star in. And my daughter. The words escaped before I could stop them. Responsibility clawed at my chest, heavy and urgent. The thought of involving her in this strange, fabricated world twisted something protective deep inside me. "She'll see you as part of my family. That's all you need to know." Her tone was final, soft yet commanding, a paradox that only made her more impossible to read. I studied her. Really studied her. The confident, untouchable woman who ran the office like a queen, the one who never let anyone see cracks in her armor, now trembled imperceptibly. She was human, and something inside me stirred, something protective, something dangerous. Something I didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't ignore. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. My mind raced in loops, practical concerns, moral dilemmas, and an odd, undeniable pull toward her. Against every instinct screaming in my head, I found myself nodding. Okay. 1 year. Her shoulders sagged as if a weight I couldn't see had lifted. Relief flooded her expression, a mix of gratitude and something softer, more intimate, and I felt an uncomfortable flutter in my chest. It shouldn't affect me like this. It shouldn't. "You don't know what you've agreed to," she whispered, almost to herself, but her gaze locked on mine, piercing, almost teasing. There was a hint of a smile, subtle and dangerous, that made the air between us thrum. I wanted to look away. I wanted to retreat to the safety of logic, of spreadsheets and deadlines. But I couldn't. My gaze lingered, tracing the curve of her jaw, the tremor in her hands, the vulnerability she didn't usually show. And somewhere deep inside, I realized that this was only the beginning. She moved closer, the soft scent of her perfume wrapping around me, a mix of jasmine and something warmer, something uniquely her. "You'll understand soon," she said again, her voice a mixture of command and invitation. "It has to look real. All of it. My family, the office, everyone. I need someone I can trust completely." Trust. The word echoed in my head, strange and heavy. I was not used to this kind of closeness with anyone, especially her. Yet the way she looked at me now, the way she had just bared a piece of herself in the empty office, stirred a dangerous curiosity. A connection I wasn't supposed to feel. My hands tightened around my coffee mug, knuckles whitening. Why me? I asked, almost bitterly. Why not anyone else? Because no one else can do it, she said softly. Because you're dependable. You understand boundaries, responsibility, and yet, you have a heart. Her eyes flicked away for a moment, vulnerability flashing, then back to mine. And I need that. Her words were disarming. They cut through the professional veneer, chipped at my armor, and left me exposed. I wanted to argue, to refuse, to step back and claim the safety of my normal, predictable life. But I couldn't. Not entirely. Something in her gaze, in the tremor of her hands, called to the part of me that longed to protect, to care, to be more than just a quiet, responsible man. The office clock ticked, the hum of the computers filling the silence, and in that moment, I realized the truth: this wasn't just a favor. This wasn't just a year of pretending. This was the beginning of something unpredictable, dangerous, and, perhaps, inevitable. I nodded again, more firmly this time. 1 year, I said. We do this your way. Her smile was radiant, dangerous, and almost terrifying in its intensity. Relief softened her features, but there was something else too, an unspoken promise, a spark of challenge that made the air between us almost combustible. And as she walked away, heels clicking softly against the floor, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the lingering scent of her perfume, I understood. The year ahead would test my heart, my boundaries, and my understanding of love in ways I could never imagine. The office was silent once more, but it no longer felt empty. It felt alive, charged with possibility, with tension, with the dangerous thrill of a secret only we now shared. I looked at my hands, the same hands that had held coffee and reports, and wondered, had they just shaken on a contract? Or had they inadvertently signed me up for a collision course with destiny? The night deepened around me, the glow of the city lights through the office windows casting long shadows. And in the quiet, I realized I had no idea how deeply this favor would entwine our lives, or how impossibly close. The first night was nothing like I imagined. My daughter had already gone to bed, the soft hum of her lullaby still lingering in my ears, and the house, her house, felt impossibly foreign. It was a world of polished floors, warm lighting, and subtle chaos, filled with the faint aroma of jasmine and vanilla from her candles. I felt out of place, like an actor stepping onto a stage I didn't know the lines to. She was in the kitchen, moving with the same graceful authority I had seen in the office, yet tonight there was something softer in her gestures. She stirred a pot slowly, almost meditatively, and glanced over her shoulder, catching me staring. Her lips curved in a small, almost shy smile, the kind that made my chest tighten. "Dinner's ready," she said, setting a plate in front of me. The golden light of the chandelier reflected off the polished table, making her appear almost ethereal. She wore a half-shoulder blouse and fitted trousers, bold yet elegant, commanding attention without even trying. My casual black shirt suddenly felt inadequate, too plain for a room that demanded presence. We sat in silence at first. The kind of silence that wasn't uncomfortable but electric, the kind that made every small sound, the clink of silverware, the faint hiss of steam from the pan, seem amplified. Every glance, every gesture carried weight, and I felt a tension in the air, like a taut string ready to snap. I wanted to speak, to break the spell, but my words stuck. So instead, I watched her. The way her hair fell softly over one shoulder, the way her eyes darted briefly to mine before looking away, the way she seemed both confident and fragile at once. I realized then that she had a side of herself no one else ever saw. And I was seeing it. Finally, I cleared my throat. "This feels strange," I admitted, my voice low, hesitant. She laughed softly, a sound that made my heart skip, and it was the kind of laugh that hinted at both nervousness and amusement. "Strange," she echoed. "Try terrifying. Try ridiculous. Pretending to be married to someone you barely know, with a child involved." Her words should have made me feel distant, cautious, but instead, they drew me closer, wrapped me in the intimacy of shared absurdity. I realized that, despite the pretense, this night carried something real. Something fragile. something that demanded attention. We ate slowly, almost ceremoniously, each bite a small act of connection. I noticed how her hands lingered near mine on the table, how our knees brushed under the soft glow of the chandelier, how the slightest accidental touch sent a jolt through me. It was maddening and exhilarating all at once. After dinner, she moved to the couch, sitting gracefully, her posture perfect yet relaxed. I followed, sitting opposite her, careful to respect the invisible line between us, the line that marked what was real and what was pretense. And yet, every glance, every subtle shift of weight, blurred that line further. "I know this isn't easy," she said finally, breaking the silence that had stretched like a thread between us. "And I know it's awkward. But, thank you for agreeing." I nodded, unsure of what to say. The truth was, I didn't just feel gratitude. I felt an odd mixture of fear and anticipation, a pull toward something dangerous and forbidden. My hand brushed hers accidentally, or perhaps not accidentally, and I felt a spark, an undeniable tension that neither of us could ignore. "Are there rules?" I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "Boundaries, limits, something to keep this manageable." She looked at me then, really looked, her eyes darkening with something I couldn't name. "Boundaries," she repeated, almost dreamily. "Yes, we need them. But boundaries don't prevent desire. Don't prevent connection. Don't prevent chaos." Her words were a challenge, a temptation, and my pulse raced. Chaos. That was exactly what this arrangement was, and yet I felt drawn to it, unable, or unwilling, to resist. Something in her gaze, the tremor in her fingers, the subtle curve of her lips, called to a part of me I had long ignored. A part that craved risk, intimacy, and the impossible. The room grew quieter, the golden light softening the edges of reality. Shadows danced across the walls, flickering with the soft movements of the candles. In that light, she seemed both untouchable and achingly close, a paradox I couldn't reconcile. And in the silence, I felt it, the first real pull of attraction, of desire, of connection that went beyond pretense. I wanted to reach for her hand, to close the distance, to break the rules we had just set. But I didn't. I sat, tense, aware of every subtle movement, every breath, every unspoken word. And in that tension, I realized something terrifying, the line between pretense and reality was already blurring. She sighed softly, leaning back slightly, and her gaze softened. "You don't have to pretend with me tonight," she said quietly, almost as if speaking to herself. "Not yet." Her words were an invitation and a warning, a spark of intimacy wrapped in a fragile promise. I wanted to speak, to respond, to close the gap between us, but the weight of responsibility, of the world outside this room, pressed down on me. My mind told me to be careful. My heart told me to risk everything. And so I stayed, sitting opposite her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her, far enough to honor the invisible line between us. The night stretched on, filled with quiet moments, shared glances, and the subtle, electric tension of two hearts navigating a dangerous new reality. By the time I finally stood to leave, my chest was tight with emotion, my mind spinning with thoughts I couldn't name. She watched me go, a small, knowing smile playing at her lips, and I realized that this first night had changed everything. The pretense, the arrangement, the year-long contract, it had already begun to unravel the boundaries I thought I knew. I walked to my daughter's room afterward, the echoes of the evening clinging to me. And as I watched her sleep, innocent and unaware, I knew that the coming days, the coming weeks, would be a delicate dance of closeness and distance, desire and restraint, pretense and truth. And somewhere in that dance, I was already losing myself to her. The night outside was still, quiet, and filled with possibilities. Shadows from the streetlights flickered across the walls, and in the golden glow of the house, I understood, this arrangement was no longer just a favor, no longer just a pretense. It was a test, a temptation, and a journey into a year that would change every part of me. The days had passed in a strange rhythm, a delicate balance between pretense and familiarity. Work, dinners, laughter, and quiet moments of tension had slowly woven an invisible thread between us, a thread that neither of us dared acknowledge, yet both of us felt taut and alive. Tonight, that thread pulled harder than ever. It was raining outside, soft drops tapping against the office windows, the city blurred behind a curtain of silver streaks. We had stayed late again, ostensibly finishing a project together, but the office felt smaller now, charged with an electricity that wasn't there before. The hum of computers faded into the background, the sound of our breathing, the subtle brush of our hands, became deafening. She turned to me, adjusting the stack of papers she had been sorting. Her hair, damp from the mist outside, fell across her face in soft, wild strands. I felt my pulse quicken. She looked up, eyes meeting mine, and in that instant, the world shrank to the distance between us. "Do you ever wonder what this is doing to us?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Not playful, not commanding, fragile. Vulnerable. I swallowed hard. Every day, I admitted, the words tasting like truth and danger. My hand brushed against hers, accidental, or maybe deliberate, and the jolt was immediate. The air thickened, charged with something unspoken yet undeniable. Her eyes widened, and I caught a flicker of fear, mixed with anticipation. "We shouldn't," she began, but her voice trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished, hanging between us like smoke. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The distance, the rules, the year-long pretense, all of it vanished in that fragile moment. My gaze fell to her lips, soft, full, impossibly tempting, and I felt the same pull she must be feeling. The office lights reflected off her eyes, making them glimmer like distant stars, and in that reflection, I saw her desire mirrored back at me. It happened slowly, hesitantly, a question wrapped in a kiss. My hand reached for hers, their fingers entwining naturally, as if they had always belonged together. Our lips met, tentative at first, exploring, testing, each aware of the dangerous territory we were stepping into. The kiss deepened almost imperceptibly, electric and soft, a secret shared in the rain-slicked night of the office. The world seemed to vanish around us. The hum of the computers, the ticking clock, the rain outside, it all became background to the fire building between us. My heart raced, my mind screamed with warnings, yet every fiber of my being urged me closer. I could feel her pulse against mine, her warmth, the subtle tremor in her fingers. Desire and fear danced together, a precarious waltz. We pulled back slightly, breathless, foreheads almost touching. She looked at me with wide, shining eyes, and I could see the struggle in her gaze, the professional barrier, the fear, the longing. "We can't," she whispered, the words barely audible, yet charged with emotion. "Not now. Not here." "I know," I murmured, though my voice betrayed me. My hand lingered over hers, unwilling to let go. But my lips hovered near hers, caught in the dangerous tension of unspoken words, and I realized that the line between pretense and reality was irreversibly blurred. She looked away, as if trying to regain control, yet her body leaned subtly toward mine. The candlelight in the office flickered across her face, highlighting the softness of her cheek, the curve of her lips, the storm in her eyes. I wanted to tell her everything, how I felt, how much I wanted to protect her, how impossibly drawn I was, but I remained silent, knowing that words might shatter the fragile moment. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds, I couldn't tell. Time had lost meaning. All that existed was the pull between us, the dangerous closeness, the secret that had begun to grow into something undeniable. Every brush of skin, every shared breath, became a punctuation in a story neither of us had intended to write. Finally, she stood abruptly, breaking the spell. The kiss was over, yet the heat lingered, the tension unresolved. "We need to focus," she said, voice firm but shaky, her eyes not leaving mine. "This arrangement, this year, it can't become more than it should." Her words struck me like both a warning and a challenge. I nodded, swallowing the fire in my chest. "I understand," I said, though I knew the truth. Understanding didn't mean controlling the heart, and my heart had already betrayed me. We returned to the papers on the desk, but the intimacy of the moment clung to us like a shadow. Every glance, every accidental touch, was now loaded with the memory of our kiss. Even the rain outside seemed to echo the tension, drumming a rhythm that matched our racing pulses. I caught her looking at me again, a subtle, lingering gaze, almost questioning, almost daring me to break the rules. And I realized then that our dance had only just begun. The kiss was not a mistake, nor was it an accident. It was a declaration, unspoken but undeniable, a spark that promised both danger and desire. The night drew on, the office now bathed in the soft glow of streetlights filtering through rain-streaked windows. Every shadow, every reflection, seemed charged with intimacy, as if the world itself had acknowledged the secret we shared. I felt a mixture of exhilaration and fear, knowing that one wrong move could unravel everything, or lead us somewhere neither of us had imagined. When I finally left the office, my coat damp from the drizzle, my mind replayed the kiss over and over, each memory sharper than the last. Her warmth, the brush of her fingers, the intensity of her gaze, it haunted me in the best and worst ways. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross, and I knew it. Walking to my car, I glanced back at the building, lit softly against the rain, and realized that our pretense was no longer just a contract. It had become a delicate, dangerous game of desire and restraint, a story that had begun to write itself in secret, in stolen glances, and whispered moments. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that this secret kiss was only the beginning. A year of pretending had transformed into a year of temptation, a year that would test boundaries, ignite forbidden desires, and challenge everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the heart. I shivered, not from the cold, but from anticipation, from the thrill of the unknown. The rain continued to fall, gentle yet persistent, a mirror to the storm I felt inside. And in that storm, one truth became undeniable: nothing would ever be the same between us. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city slick and glimmering, streetlights reflecting on the wet pavement like scattered jewels. We were stranded together in the office parking lot, waiting for a cab that was running late. The silence between us was heavy but different from before, less pretense, more charged, a quiet pull that neither of us wanted to acknowledge. She leaned against the hood of her car, water droplets still clinging to her hair, her bold half-shoulder blouse clinging slightly, making her seem at once untouchable and intimate. I stood beside her, my black shirt damp from the drizzle, feeling the warmth of her proximity and the tension that hummed between us. The night had a kind of suspended magic, the kind that makes every glance, every movement, feel like a confession waiting to be spoken. "I can't stop thinking about last night," she said suddenly, her voice low, almost trembling. I turned to look at her fully, catching the way her eyes shimmered in the soft streetlight. Vulnerable. Honest. She had let a crack appear in the armor she wore so perfectly in the office, and I couldn't look away. "Neither can I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. My heart pounded, each beat echoing the unspoken desires swirling between us. "It's impossible to forget." Her lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but the words faltered. I saw her hesitate, the delicate play of fear and longing dancing across her face. "We shouldn't," she whispered, then paused, letting the unfinished sentence hang in the humid night air. I stepped closer, careful to respect her space, yet drawn irresistibly to her warmth. "I know we shouldn't," I said softly, my hand brushing against hers accidentally, or maybe not. "But my heart, it doesn't care about rules." She looked down at our hands, fingers brushing, and I felt the pull between us intensify. A heartbeat passed, then another, before she finally met my gaze, eyes wide and glistening. "I feel it too," she admitted, the words trembling but resolute. "I've tried to ignore it, to hold it back, but I can't." The world seemed to shrink around us. The street, the cab lights, the wet pavement, all faded into the background, leaving only the two of us, tethered by something fragile yet electric. The air was thick with longing, and the danger of desire made every second heavier, sweeter, and terrifying. "I've tried to protect you," she continued, her voice barely audible, "to keep this arrangement from turning into something real. But I can't. Every time I see you, every time you smile at my daughter, I lose control." Her words struck me like a lightning bolt. Protect her? Lose control? Every syllable exposed the raw vulnerability she had hidden for so long, and it ignited a protective fire deep within me. "You don't have to protect me," I whispered. "I want this. I want you. All of it." She swallowed hard, and I saw the tiniest shiver pass through her. The rain had left her damp hair clinging to her neck, and the soft glow of the streetlights made her skin look luminous, delicate, untouchable. My hand itched to reach for her face, to brush the hair from her eyes, to hold her in a way that spoke louder than words ever could. Her gaze dropped again, then returned to mine, steady, searching. "What if this ruins everything?" she asked, the vulnerability breaking through the boldness she always carried in the office. "What if we can't go back?" "I don't care," I said firmly, the weight of my words grounding us. "I can't go back to being just colleagues. Not now. Not after this. Not after feeling this." I hesitated, swallowing the lump in my throat. "After feeling you." The confession hung in the air between us, heavy, sweet, and dangerous. And then, impossibly, she closed the gap herself. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining, and I felt the tension in her grip, delicate yet firm. The distance that had existed for so long disappeared, replaced by an undeniable closeness, a connection neither of us could deny. "I've been scared," she admitted softly, her forehead leaning toward mine, our breaths mingling. "Scared of losing control. Scared of losing myself. But I can't deny it anymore. I love you." The word hit me, a lightning strike that left me breathless. Love. It wasn't pretense. It wasn't a contract. It was real, messy, terrifying, and impossible, and I had fallen just as deeply. "I love you too," I confessed, my voice trembling with the intensity of it. "I've been trying to fight it, trying to stay in control, but I can't. I want this, all of it, with you, with your daughter, forever." Her lips curved into a small, radiant smile, the kind that melts defenses and sparks desire. The vulnerability, the honesty, the intimacy between us became overwhelming, and I realized that all the rules, the pretense, the arrangement, it no longer mattered. We had crossed into something real, something irreversible, something that would change our lives forever. The world outside the parking lot disappeared. The wet streets, the distant hum of cars, the flickering streetlights, all faded as we stood there, heart to heart, tethered by words, touches, and confessions that had taken far too long to speak. And yet, even as we embraced, a quiet tension lingered, a question, a cliffhanger. Could we navigate the year ahead, the office, the family, and our own hearts without breaking? Could the fragile balance we had found survive the intensity of our feelings? I didn't have an answer. But I did have her hand in mine, her warmth against my chest, and the undeniable truth that we were no longer pretending. We were living it, feeling it, and surrendering to it. The rain had stopped, but the storm inside me, inside us, had only just begun. And as we finally let ourselves close, the night seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. We had confessed. The morning sun spilled into the living room, soft golden light warming every corner of the space. The city outside was bustling, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding inside our home. I watched her from across the room, the woman who had once asked me to pretend to be her husband, now sitting comfortably on the couch in a bold half-shoulder blouse, her hair cascading over one shoulder, her eyes soft yet sparkling. She wasn't just my boss anymore. She was mine, truly, irrevocably. My daughter came running down the stairs, her hair messy from sleep and a wide grin on her face. "Daddy! Mommy!" "Breakfast," she shouted, her voice bright and innocent. The sound filled the room, and I realized something I had felt for weeks. This wasn't just about love between the two of us anymore. It was about family, a real, chaotic, beautiful family we were creating together. I walked over, scooping her up in my arms. She hugged me tightly, laughter bubbling from her lips. The woman, my partner in every sense now, smiled softly, standing to take my daughter's other hand. In that moment, all pretense had dissolved. The contract, the arrangement, the year-long ruse, it didn't matter. What mattered was here, in the light of morning, in the laughter of a child, in the warmth of love we had dared to claim. We prepared breakfast together, an oddly intimate chaos of spilled juice, buttered toast, and shared smiles. She laughed when I burned the eggs, her hand brushing mine as she corrected my clumsy attempt. The touches were casual, natural, full of intimacy, the kind that comes from knowing someone is yours, not by contract, but by heart. Sitting at the table, she reached across, her fingers grazing mine. "Do you remember the first night?" she asked, her voice quiet, nostalgic. "How awkward it was." I chuckled, shaking my head. I thought I'd never survive dinner without saying something completely stupid. And yet, here we are. "Here we are," she echoed, her eyes softening. The corners of her lips lifted in a subtle, radiant smile, one that made my heart clench with emotion. "And it's better than I ever imagined. Far better than any plan or arrangement could have been." I reached for her hand, holding it gently. "It's perfect because it's real. Not pretend. Not a favor. Not a contract. Us." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. She leaned in slightly, resting her forehead against mine, and I felt the pulse of our shared heartbeats. There was no rush, no tension, just the quiet intimacy of being together, whole and unguarded. Later, we stepped outside into the backyard, my daughter running ahead, twirling in delight as the sunlight caught her hair. I stood beside her, the woman who had once been my boss, now my partner, my love, my equal. The warmth of the morning sun mingled with the warmth between us, and I realized how deeply my life had changed in 1 year. How fragile moments of connection, stolen kisses, and whispered confessions had grown into something solid, unshakable, and joyful. She took my hand, fingers entwining naturally, and I felt a surge of certainty. "This year," she said softly, "was supposed to be pretend. But it became real. And I'm so glad it did." "Me too," I said, smiling, feeling a rush of gratitude, love, and wonder. More than I can ever say. We stood in silence for a moment, the gentle breeze brushing our faces, the sounds of the city mingling with the laughter of my daughter. It was peaceful, almost perfect, a snapshot of happiness we had fought for, stumbled into, and finally claimed. Later that evening, as we tucked my daughter into bed, I realized the journey we had taken. From the absurd, impossible request that had frozen my heart in disbelief, to the stolen kisses in the rain, to the confessions that laid our souls bare, we had survived it all. And in doing so, we had built a foundation stronger than any contract or plan could have created. She watched me, her gaze tender, reflective, and something unspoken passed between us, a promise, a shared understanding, a quiet vow that this was only the beginning of a lifetime together. I brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, my fingers lingering on her cheek, and whispered, "We made it. We're ours now." She smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Forever," she said simply, the word carrying the weight of love, trust, and all the unspoken moments we had shared. We embraced, fully, completely, holding on to each other as though the world might fade around us, and for a moment, it did. It was just us, our hearts, our love, our family, and I knew that all the chaos, all the longing, all the danger we had faced was worth this. Worth every tear, every hesitation, every risk. And as the night deepened, we stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. She leaned her head on my shoulder, my arm around her waist, my daughter curled happily between us. The world was vast and unpredictable, but in this small, golden moment, it felt infinite. The pretense, the arrangements, the contracts, they were gone. All that remained was the truth, the love we had found in each other, and the promise of a future we would write together. I kissed her temple softly, inhaling her scent, feeling the warmth of her body, and whispered, "No more pretending. Just us." She smiled, the radiant, dangerous, beautiful smile that had captivated me from the beginning, and said, "Just us." And in that moment, I knew we had found our happily ever after. Not in a year-long contract, not in obligations or rules, but in love, honesty, and the unshakable bond of our hearts. The city lights flickered below, the world continuing its chaos outside our quiet bubble. But inside, our family was whole, our hearts aligned, and the year that had begun with pretense had ended in something infinitely more beautiful. We had crossed lines, taken risks, and opened our hearts. And now,